Hi guys, I'm glad to welcome everyone to my channel. Put the likes, subscribe, it will be interesting. On July 16, 1945, an event occurred that changed the entire history of mankind. At the Alamogordo test site in New Mexico, a 21 kiloton TNT plutonium bomb was detonated, and conventional weapons were immediately obsolete. Since the invention of explosives, our planet, thanks to its population, has experienced a number of artificial explosions comparable to the first nuclear ones. Some of them occurred at the will of man, others in spite of it. I have compiled a selection of the most powerful non-nuclear explosions. Let's start. Number 1 is explosion of Ripple Rock, Canada, 1958, 1 kiloton. Ripple Rock has been a torturous obstacle for many years that plagued sailors in Sabre Sound, part of the inland waterway between Seattle and Alaska that runs near Vancouver Island. Located right in the middle of the channel, the rock at the bottom of the tide was only 2.7 meters below the surface of the water. Overcoming it was associated with the hard work of the pilots, and it did not always end in success. The shipwrecks caused by Ripple Rock included about 120 ships of various sizes and at least 110 sailors. Finally, in the mid-50s, it was decided to destroy it by blowing up. Several shafts were drilled in Ripple Rock, inside which 1,270 tons of Nitramax 2H explosives were stowed. The work cost millions of those time dollars and took 2.5 years. The X-hour came on April 5, 1958. Then the charge detonated, which was broadcast on the CBS television channel. As a result of the impressive explosion, the rock was thrown down. The depth about it increased to 14 meters, and the sailors began to pass by with confidence. The second place is the explosion of the N-1 rocket Baikonur, 1969. Approximately from 1 to 7 kilotons. The super heavy launch vehicle N-1 was designed by Sergei Korolov's design bureau to launch space stations and elements of future interplanetary spacecraft into near-Earth orbit, and later became an important part of the Soviet lunar program. The most complex mechanism of giant dimensions, the height was more than 100 meters, was supposed to ensure the continuation of the USSR's domination in the universe exploration, but finally it became the white elephant of Russian cosmonautics, which required colossal financial costs. As a result, the project ended in failure. All 4 attempts to send the N-1 into space, only on the first stage of which 30 engines were installed, ended in failure, and the launch of July 3, 1969 led to especially grave consequences. The rocket was able to take off only 200 meters, after which it fell flat on the launch pad and exploded. The death of the fully fueled giant was monstrously deafening. The launch complex was almost completely destroyed. Its neighbor was seriously damaged, which forced the next test to be postponed for 2 years, during which 3 American crews managed to visit the moon. The power of the largest explosion in the history of rocketry is estimated by experts in different ways, from 1 to 7 kilotons of TNT. If the later value is true, this makes it the largest artificial non-nuclear explosion on Earth. Number 3 is tragedy in Port Chicago, USA, 1944, from 1.6 to 2.2 kilotons. During the Second World War, There were a number of emergencies, the victims of which were hundreds of people, and this did not happen on the fronts during the fighting. The California city, Port Chicago, was one of the most important supply points for the US troops in the Pacific theater of military operations. One of the routine operations of loading 5,000 tons of ammunition on E.A. Bryan on July 17, 1944, ended in disaster. At 10:18 p.m., as a result of two explosions, the naval base virtually ceased to exist. What caused the tragedy is still unknown. All witnesses of the incident, and this is 320 American sailors, were killed. Most of them were black port personnel who carried out the direct loading. A few weeks later, an order to resume ammunition work led to a riot of African American survivors in Port Chicago. The number 4 is explosion at the Fallden Royal Air Force Base, Great Britain, 1944, 2 kilotons of TNT. Just 3 months after the events in California, on November 27, 1944, a similar incident occurred in Great Britain. The Fallden Air Force underground arsenal detonated. About 4,000 tons of ammunition, mostly bombs and cartridges. About 70 people were killed, workers of the base, Italian prisoners of war who carried out loading operations, and civilians from the surrounding villages. The blast wave destroyed the dam of the local reservoir. Many of the victims drowned. The nearby limestone quarry was also flooded. At the site of the explosion, a giant crater was formed, which can still be observed on the ground. The consequences of what happened could be much more sad, because only a third of the arsenal exploded. Fortunately, the rocky partitions of its sections prevented a possible chain reaction. Number 5 is explosion at the Navy base Evangelos, Florakis, Cyprus, 2011, up to 3.2 kilotons of TNT. Frankly speaking, this kind of incident is peculiar not only to wartime. In 2009, the US Navy ships intercepted a ship under the Cypriot flag and under the not-too-Cypriot name, Monchegorsk, in the Mediterranean Sea. A ship loaded with artillery shells and other weapons was sailing from Iran to Syria. The contents of the holds were confiscated, but since the island's authorities had absolutely no idea what to do with it, they did not find anything better than to just stockpile ammunition right in the open. The inevitable happened on July 11, 2011. After a fire that lasted for an hour and a half, the bulk of the shells detonated. As a result of the ensuing explosion, the naval base was virtually destroyed and the nearby power plant was seriously damaged, leaving almost the entire country without electricity. 13 people were killed, including the commander of the Cypriot Navy and the head of the base. The damage amounted to just under $3 billion, an astronomical sum in compared to the standards of the small country. Thanks everyone who watched this video until the end. The second part will be on the channel very soon. Write comments what topics are interesting for you.